Good morning. Wanted to introduce Mr. Steve Kerridge, who runs Essex Kickboxing, a pretty prolific gym. Been in the business a very, very long time. I think anybody who's done ring combat will know who you are. You've had a fantastic career. You've done shows, you've run a gym, you've had prolific fighters. There's not much that you haven't sort of managed to achieve in your career. You're very relaxed. I think the first show, or the only show actually, I came down and officiated years and years ago. It was in a club that you always used to use. I can't remember.
Circus Tavern, yeah.
Say the name.
Circus Tavern, probably, yeah.
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah.
And you became my guru instantly, because whenever I'd done a show or other people's shows and we'd gone to, the promoters usually running around like a blue-ass fly. You didn't. You delegated everything. You turned up when you were ready. You were so laid back, and I'm like, that's the way to.
The funny thing, I mean, is me and me mate Jeff Watts, we really took two that done the shows, wasn't just me, you know. And I mean, the first show we put on was 1999, I think it was, and this was through really encouragement from Alan Willock, who does the boxing now. He's known for the IBA boxing, and a good friend, known for 30, 40 years now, and he was sort of instrumental in sort of saying, put a show on. And so me and Jeff did that, and it's like anything. It's we didn't know what to expect. The first show we did actually was absolutely it must have been 1,500 people there. It was like we was just like gobsmacked, you know. And obviously we've had some good shows since then, but we've had some bad ones, you know. So self-promoting's not. It's not a money-making venture, really. It really, you might make money on one and lose it on the next one. So it's up and down. So I think you've got to look at promoting. Well, for me particularly, promoting really was more for, right, if you get a bit of pocket money, lovely. But if you don't, the main objective is that it gives your fighters an outing. And you say about us being not being stressed. Do you know what? It was Cole Sams that gave me the idea years ago, because it's like when you're running the show. You're sort of running your ass off like a blue-ass fly, aren't you, really? And Cole said to me, look, you should get people to do certain jobs and just turn up when the show's ready to start. He said, let delegate, because, when you put a show on, everyone comes up and wants a favour.
Yeah.
Oh, can I change? I've got to get home early because my dog's not well, or blah, 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 and they want to get their fight on early. Well, someone's got to fight last. Someone's got to fight second from last. Someone's got to fight first. It's just the way it goes. I've been to loads of shows around the country of our fighters where we're there to sort of 1 in the bleeding morning, waiting for our fight to come on. And, it's just the way it is, isn't it? It's the way it is. It's not every night of the week, is it? I don't know what people moan about so much, but some of the people used to moan for it. I'm not going to name anyone, but people that are quite local. I would think, what? You're like 5 minutes down the road.
It's always the case, right? Always the case.
Yeah, and the people that come from Scotland or somewhere, it was like, that's fine, So it was, so promoting, it's right promoting, but it can be a bit of a pain in the arse as well, to be honest with you. You're dealing with a lot of good people, but you're also dealing with a lot of arseholes as well, And,
I think the people who are difficult to work with, that's what makes it. A lot of promoters they love giving their fighters opportunity, any fighters opportunity. They love doing promoting, but it is dealing with people that can be the cherry on the cake for people deciding to stop doing it. They just have enough. The thing that was, when I learned this about you, I was surprised. I'd always seen you as a great instructor, loved your kickboxing, loved what you did, been in the industry a million years, been there, done it. And then we had a conversation a while back, and it turns out that you're a proclaimed author. Is there anybody else in this country that knows more about Bruce Lee than Steve Kerridge? I don't think there is. And I really wanted to talk about that today. And what I love about that is that you've got a fight gym. You do things, in a very combat orientated manner. It's not what you would describe as a traditional format. the way you run your gym, you know, in terms of your style. You don't do kung fu and you know, karate and some of the, you know, the more traditional boxed styles. And you have this great love of Bruce Lee. You've written loads of books.
Well, let me stop you there. Right, I'm not a kickboxer. I'm not a boxer. I'm not this. I'm a martial artist. Yeah. So to me, that leaves it open. So to me, I've got an open mind to everything. So I've done loads of magazines and small stuff like that. You know, probably 40 or 50 of them. You know, I've done tons of that sort of stuff. I've wrote for Muscle and Fitness, based in New York. That I've done some articles for them before. For Bruce Lee, it was to do with Bruce Lee, but it's to do with his training. So I've done some articles for them. I've done bits and pieces for the Bruce Lee estate. Yeah, do you know what? I've not really kept account of it really. I've done a book a couple of years ago for Colton Publishing. It was probably one of the biggest publishers in the world, or it was at the time. And but that was more of a commission really. They commissioned me through recommendation from the Bruce Lee estate, because they're based in the UK and obviously me in the UK. So they came to me. It was quite funny really, because they came to me to do a book that was called The Visual History. Bruce Lee, a visual history, and so they came to me and said, "Well, we want, you know, we'll pay you a fixed fee." They sent the contract through to me anyway, and they showed me the bits and pieces, and that went backwards and forwards about 10 times. I'm not kidding, because you know the first contract was I was responsible for everything. You know, I thought, no, I'm not having that. You know, I'm going to write the book, but I'm not going to be responsible for someone coming and suing me because I've said this and said that. You know, so that all got ironed out and sorted out. Then I said the other condition, I want my name on the cover. And they said, well, okay, let us speak to Shannon, like Bruce Lee's daughter. And that was fine with that. But Colton was being overcautious, obviously. So that all got okayed. So the agreement was in place. And as we want 20,000 words. Yeah, 20,000 words. So, okay, so I went to work working on that. And when I sent the work through to them, then they had to submit that to the Bruce Lee estate, and then the Bruce Lee estate rejected it.
On what grounds? Why did they? Do you know why?
I didn't know. At first, I didn't know. I mean, because I deal with them anyway. I speak to them fairly regularly, and I couldn't sort of get an answer. So I couldn't really ask them directly why, because that was a contract between them and Colton. You know what I'm saying? So I couldn't really contact them anyway and say, why are you rejecting this? Because they'll say, well, you have to go through Colton. It's to do with them. So it's all done professionally, obviously. I ain't done like mates type thing. It's done on a professional basis, so I couldn't go. Anyway, later on I spoke to them about it after the fact. But what had happened was, I thought if I wrote something that's not right, if I've upset them, I thought, no, I can't, I've gone over thing, you know. So it turns out that what Colton had done originally, they'd licensed, as it says, a visual history. So the book was to be made on the premise that it was images and accompanying text to those images. I might have a picture of Bruce Lee training, and I've had to write a bit about, you know, he was in his home at Bel Air, blah, 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 blah. Or whether it was, you know, that particular picture on the set of a movie or whatever. But I didn't know that. They just asked me to write basically a biography. And now, writing a biography on Bruce Lee, I'm not being funny, if you really, really went into depth, you could make it 20 volumes. You can, one book would never do it justice anyway.
Certainly not to 20,000 words, right?
Yeah, but I mean, commercially, you couldn't do a 20-volume book because it ain't commercially viable. So they just want, you know, so obviously it's down to the editing stages. So we done 20,000 words in the end for them. And the problem it turned out was that Colton had licensed for a visual history, as I just explained, but then provided a biography. So the estate's going, hang on a minute, this is not what you've paid your license for, you know. You haven't paid for a biography, you paid for a visual history. So it got rejected. So it was nothing to do with what I'd done. And when I spoke to the estate sometime later, the fellow that I used to deal with there, and he said, no, everything you done was fine. He said, but it was Colton. They just basically overstepped the mark, I suppose. Whether it was on purpose, I don't know, but that was nothing to do with me. But anyway, the book eventually come out, and I think it's done quite well. I think it's, to my knowledge, it's probably done 20,000 plus, like in English, and then it's done foreign I think it's just come out in France or somewhere. It's well, what, and that's the reason why I wanted my name on the cover, because I thought, okay, what I got paid wasn't a lot of money really, but I did try to go for the royalty as well, but they wouldn't have that. So I said, okay, I want my name on the cover, definitely. Otherwise, I ain't doing it, because that would help me in my resume, if you like, for everything else I'm doing. You know, so I got that, and I won the day on that. So that was Colton. But I've done quite a few other books as well, but they're more like self-published, limited edition stuff. You know, I'm working on one at the moment. I've done one last year, which and I've got a friend of mine who lives in Singapore that helps me research as well. A friend in England called Greg, and he helps me sort of with the research. So you know, I tend to sort of collaborate with a few people as well, and which I think is the best way, really.
Yeah, always. So, yeah. What do you want to share with the group about the things that you've learned, about the perspective that going through all of that research with the most famous name attached to martial arts, Bruce Lee, obviously?
Well, I mean, first off, when you're researching anything, I mean, it's a bit like a CSI type of an approach, really, because you literally, what I tend to do is, I've got quite a lot of photographic material, so I'll look at so I'm working on a certain part of his life. I look at those photographs I've got, and I go, well, you look at where he is, you look at who he's with, you look at the timeline that he's in, the reason he's in the photograph. So you look at, it's like a police investigation, really. And then so that's what I do with everything, and it's surprising what you learn through that. You know, like, you might not know where he is particularly. I mean, there was one really anarchy bit, really, a few years ago, the book I did, where when he made his first movie, Big Boss, which was mostly filmed in Thailand, which I extensively researched. I mean, I went to Thailand, I went to all the locations. I spoke to people in Thailand. My wife's Thai anyway, so we met Thai movie stars out there. I met a Thai stuntman we became friends with that was on the set, worked with Bruce. Anyway, really went into depth with it. But there's one part where he went back to Hong Kong and filmed some additional scenes to finish what they do, you know, and but nobody really knew where he was or what studio he was at when he filmed this, you know, the parts in Hong Kong. So by chance, I was going through some old Hong Kong movie magazines, as you do, and I noticed an article with nothing to do with Bruce Lee. I'm flicking through, and I thought, I recognise that lamppost. Honestly, how sick am I, you know? What I'm actually, I'm crap at a lot of things, but what I'm really good at, I've got quite a good photographic memory. I'll remember things like that. Things that I've always been good like that, and like visually and design-wise, you know, I can always see things. And like if you said to me, can you design me something in a 1950s jazz style, I could do that, or I've got that ability to do that. So my mind's always been good in that way, you know. So straight away, boom, I've noticed this lamppost, which I've seen in all the photos of Bruce Lee standing. But it turns out it came up with the name of the studio, blah blah blah. It wasn't a Bruce Lee related article, but then I know where he filmed it. So it was by chance. Some things are by chance, you know. But it's all through investigation. So I've learned a lot in that aspect through, which is not directly because of Bruce Lee, but because of what I've been doing with the Bruce Lee stuff. I've learned a lot, you know, how to sort of really analyse things and break things down. And I suppose the main lesson from that is that slowly, catchy monkey type of attitude. You know, you've got to really sometimes, rather than rush in, just sit back and you can see things a lot clearer. And that also portrays onto my teaching. You know, sometimes you've got to just sit back and, because like you said about all these fighters, you know, the amount of times I've had someone say to me, "Oh yeah, I want to compete, I want to do it," and they're just full of shit most of the time. You know, until they get their first punch on the nose, or they sweat a bit too much, or they realise that, you know, they've got to go training sort of like 5-6 days a week, not 3 times a week. Suddenly the enthusiasm disappears, you know. So I'll sit back sometimes now, I'll listen to people, I'll sit back, okay, you know, and just, I don't take people that serious until they prove themselves. Does that make sense?
It does. I think a lot of us would agree with that philosophy.
I don't take myself seriously either.
What are your favourite stories? You've possibly been exposed to some aspects of Bruce Lee that isn't the mainstream commercial stuff. What are your favourite bits?
Do you know, it's finding out about the person, like when you're investigating someone like Bruce Lee, for example. I mean, to me, it's what got me into it all really in the first place back in the early 70s. It was like that book I've just brought out, the Everybody's Kung Fu Fighting.
Yeah.
You know, that was inspired really. Obviously, it's all inspired by Bruce Lee in one way or other, but it was inspired from like my days as a young kid of seeing that image straight away, of Kung Fu Bruce Lee, and getting me interested in it, and so that book is, I'll go into that in a minute if you want to, but that's all about that. But I think with Bruce Lee, I think it's just discovering that what it was about. It wasn't just about being in the films and being a film star. It was about him being a martial artist, about him being an innovator of what he did. He was ahead of his time. What he was doing back then, people were doing now, but it wasn't. No way was people doing things back then what he was doing. People were mixing different styles of martial art. People weren't training to music. People weren't combining like the doctrines of people like Krishnamurti and all these top philosophers and Alan Watts and all that. Bruce Lee was sort of like injecting those theories into his martial art theories, and he was like, if you look at the way Bruce Lee, it always makes you laugh when you get this. I teach Jeet Kune Do. How many people have you seen on the internet that are Jeet Kune Do instructors, and you think it's unlike, to me, Jeet Kune Do isn't a style anyway. Jeet Kune Do is a process. It was a process that Bruce Lee, like a concept really, and I just think he was the first one to put that type of an approach into martial arts. And back then, a lot of people didn't like him because he was basically like pissing on their parade. You got the sensei, and no one can sort of like tell him he's doing wrong. And Bruce Lee come along and go, no, you're doing wrong. Well, that's not. I've got a better way of doing that. And back in especially in America, back in the 60s, there wasn't no open-mindedness really, especially amongst the Chinese. Funny enough,
I think though,
especially the Chinese. That's why he was so different. What
I find interesting about this particular subject is that a lot of martial arts instructors, regardless as to what style they teach, undisputedly would respect what Bruce Lee did and all the rest of it. But the irony is that even to this day, there is that my way or the highway, and we academically, or we articulate, I'm a karate man and I'm an aikido man or a kung fu man, or whatever, and we'll say the sentences, there's holes in all systems and but actually the fluidity of teaching and that openness and that broadness hasn't necessarily translated through the generations. I think Bruce Lee busting that concept open brought it to the West, opened martial arts up, made us mix it up a little bit. But I think still to this day, there are a lot of instructors that don't want to be questioned, and I
can understand it. Don't get me wrong, I can understand. I mean, there's nothing wrong with tradition. Tradition's great. I mean, if you've got a traditional karate style or kung fu style, I don't think they should lose that tradition, because that's part of history. It's part of that's part of
well, it's foundation, isn't it? It's their foundation. You've got to have a strong foundation, right?
Part of their heritage, and it's part of the martial art heritage. You can't just go, well, we're going to forget all that karate. We're going to forget. Of course you can't. That is history. That's you still got to look at all that. But you could, if you compared that, say, to boxing. Right, so if you said like karate, I'll use karate for example, you've got Shotokan, you've got Goju-ryu, you've got Wado-ryu, and you've got all the branches off of those particular styles, and you had the Kyokushinkai, which is what I did really. But that, when you look at the history of Kyokushinkai, I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? When you look at Oyama, who most people don't realise was Korean, and he wasn't even Japanese, he was Korean.
Which is hilarious, right?
Yeah. But, there's a really good film, actually. It's called Fighter in the Wind. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a Korean film. Fighter in the Wind. It's his life story. Really good film.
I'm going to write that down, actually. Fighter in the Wind. Is it a good one?
Fighter in the Wind. And it's the story of Masutatsu Oyama. And Masutatsu? Yeah, Oyama. And how he was getting beat up by the Japanese karate people. And he went off to the mountains and trained in the mountains and come back, and with his gi all dirty and ripped to pieces, and and he's beat them all up, and that's like, and he's fought, the famous story of him fighting the bull and pulling the horns off the bull, and it's a really good film, Fighter in the Wind. But if you look at that, even really, like he's gone off and done his own thing.
I think all the revolutionary aspect, the people who were revolutionary they went off and they found their vibe and their flavour. They analysed it, they reflected.
Listen, you've got to look at where styles originated and why that style originated. Why does an animal in a cold country have long fur? Keep it warm.
Well,
if you look at a style of kung fu, so like some of the southern styles of kung fu. Please, someone here correct me because I'm not that good on the history. So the southern styles of kung fu, they're more hand-based, and the northern styles of kung fu are more leg-based. So if you look at the reason for that is the southern-based, they're more in the paddy fields, rice fields, and they're using the flails, and they're more upper body strength, And you look at the northern styles, like the Mongolians, they're more horseback riders, they've got strong legs.
Okay.
So they use their legs more. So that's where that originated from. And then if you look at what's the style? Is it Hungar? I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where they're got a very long, wide stance, and that one of those styles. If it was that style, one of those styles anyway, it originated from the sailors on the boats, and because the boats rocking backwards and forwards, they're fighting on the boat or sparring. They've got to have a long stance and maintain their balance because the boat's got movement.
I'd not even.
So yeah, but what I'm trying to say is,
do you?
Those styles have evolved to the environment. So Bruce Lee goes to America. What's Bruce Lee's environment? He's come from Hong Kong, from a traditional Wing Chun background, really. He's done some odds and sods apart from that, but he's mainly Wing Chun based. He's gone to the States. Obviously, he's very unique to the Americans back in them days. They've never seen nothing like that before, But suddenly he's facing wrestlers, he's facing boxers, he's facing, like a Western style street fighters, if you like, So he's got to adapt to his surroundings. So he's gone off and he's learned a bit of judo, he's learned a bit of whatever else he's learned, and so he's adapting to his surroundings. Okay, and you've got to adapt to yourself. If you don't, it's a bit like now with the lockdown. If we don't adapt to this now, thanks to the online stuff, you've got to adapt to it. If you don't adapt to it, you're going to die.
Yeah.
So it's either adapt or die. So people that stand there and moan and whinge, if you don't want to adapt, then die. And that's basically it. So Bruce Lee was adapting to his, and that's what he did. He had an open mind and he adapted. And I think that's one of the lessons. Like, going back to your original question, what I've learned about Bruce Lee, the most interesting thing is the fact that he adapted to what he, and that is a lesson in life, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I realised that a long time ago, and I've always tried to. I'm not perfect, far from it, but you try and adapt to your circumstances, and you think, well, okay, well, that's not working. Why isn't it working? And that comes that I've been training since I was a kid, and I'll get in there and spar with someone who's been training 6 months, and I'll get a fat lip. That shouldn't happen. It does happen, doesn't it?
Of course it happens, yeah.
It does. And it happened to Bruce Lee, probably as well. No one's perfect. Anyone who puts himself on the pedestal is ready to get knocked off. As my dad used to tell me, there's always someone tougher.
Always.
And if they're tougher in the front of your car, they're really tough. No, I'm joking. But you know what I'm saying? Just, to me, it's all bullshit. When you look at martial art, really, it's all brilliant and it's all bullshit at the same time. It's everything works and everything doesn't work. When you think about it, everything works and everything doesn't. It depends on the circumstances.
That sentence is really profound. It'll irritate a lot of people because I think as human beings, we instantly want to defend ourselves and go, hold on a minute, it does work, but you got to listen to what you've said. It depends on your circumstances.
Yeah, you've also got a sense of humour, haven't you? You can't take yourself too serious. Do you know what? It's like another story about Bruce. I'm doing this book at the moment, and he's on the set of Fist of Fury, yeah, and he's getting challenged by people all the time in Hong Kong. Extras on the set, people on the street.
Just challenged randomly as he's...
Yeah. He's getting a lot. When he went back to Hong Kong, he was getting challenged quite regularly. And most of the time it was people wanted free publicity.
Okay.
There's one famous one, Lau Chechien, his name was, and he was a boxing champion, he was a kung fu champ, or whatever he was supposed to have been, and he challenged Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee just basically ignored him. I think he irritated him a little bit, but he couldn't afford to. It's like you can't win a situation, can you? It's like so like if your husband is in his karate class and a student comes in and tries to beat him up. If he beats a student up, he's going to be looked at as a bully. If he gets beat up, he's going to look at, oh, he's not very good. He can't win. Bruce Lee couldn't win. You can't win a situation like that. You're a no-win situation. So most of the time he'd ignore it. Sometimes he wouldn't. Sometimes he would give him a crack. But the funny story was he's on the set of Fist of Fury, and I don't know if you remember the movie. There's a fella in it who plays a Russian. Called, his name's Bob Baker. He's one of Bruce Lee's former students from Oakland back in the States, and Bruce Lee brought him to Hong Kong to appear in a film as the Russian. Because back in the story of the film was like based in 1900 Shanghai, and you had like Japanese occupation and imperialistic type of like with the Europeans, and they occupied part of Shanghai, and it was the Chinese would limit to what they could do in a lot of places. They couldn't go in the parks. There was no Chinese allowed. All that's true. All these sort of things are true. And Bob Baker played the Russian because back in the day there was you used to get a lot of Russian wrestlers and strongmen and European and American strong used to go to China, and they'd be on the stage with their big handlebar moustache and their big dumbbells and their leotards and their tiger leotards on. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of true stories in that, and there was a lot of challenges. They challenged the Chinese and whatever. And so Bob Baker was really playing the part of that sort of a figure, in the film. So anyway, they're on the set, and they've done their scene. They've had a hard day, filming all day and all night. And then someone's challenged Bruce Lee, one of the extras. And a lot of the extras at the time, they were like triad gang members, really.
Okay.
Local triad gangs. They go on a set and they're sort of like for a few quid and just really to be near Bruce Lee, really. But a lot of them, although they probably used to adore him, to them it was like an honour to fight him. It's like me loving Muhammad Ali and seeing him in the street and going up and having a fight with him. Oh yeah, I love him so much. I'm going to test myself. That's the mentality. So that's what was happening a lot of the time. So but sense of humour wise, what Bob Baker said in his sort of recollections of it, he said this fella's come on a set. He said he's to challenge Bruce. He said, and the next thing Bruce is whispering something in his ear. He said, I'm standing a bit away from him, and so I don't know what Bruce was saying to him, but the young Chinese fella kept looking at me. He said, then looking at Bruce and looking at me. All of a sudden he charged at me. Attacked me. He attacked me. He said, so I stood to the side, went boom. So I put him on his arse, and the kids, got up and his sort of arse sparked out. And he said to Bruce, what was that about? He said, I told him, if you want to challenge me, you've got to challenge my best student first. And that's like a traditional Chinese method, isn't it? Like before you can challenge the master, you have to fight the best student. So Bruce Lee was like tongue in cheek, really.
Yeah. Funny though. That's funny.
Yeah. So there's loads of stories like that. And I've learned loads of stuff. There's loads of interesting. I'm talking about all day long and bored the pants off it. But to me, the biggest influence of Bruce Lee was his mind, really, I suppose.
And so when you sit back with your very laid back philosophical way of you're very philosophical.
Listen, I'm good at giving out advice, but I don't take my own advice.
But you're one of these people who you walk and talk how you do. You do it very quietly. You sit back, you watch, you learn, you listen, you formulate your thoughts. Pet irritations about the martial arts industry in the UK? You're steeped in. You've been closer to the most influential mind in our sport than many of us have, in terms of understanding him and how he was and how he evolved and the benefits of that. What are your biggest irritations? Because a lot of it instructors are, Bruce Lee was my influence, and then you must sit back and go, no, you haven't quite managed to. You're not getting it, kid.
Yeah, but some people, as I said, Bruce Lee can be a film. I said earlier, it can be a film star. It can be a martial artist to people. So, So a lot of people, even like martial arts instructors now that sort of my age, it's not knocking anyone, by the way. This is a genuine. I don't blame anyone for it. They got influenced by, say, by Bruce Lee because they see him in a film or see him on a magazine back in the day, and to them it's like oh yeah, that got me going. You know, it got me studying martial arts, whether it was karate, whether it was judo, whatever it was. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that was like the catalyst that got them. That was like the spark that lit the fire for them. Yeah, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's it. End of story. They haven't got to think about Bruce Lee one more bit at all because that's it. Job done. You know, job done. I mean, you know, before, I think the film producer Fred Weintraub said that before Bruce Lee, there was in America, like every town had a beauty parlor, had a church. After Bruce Lee, every town had a beauty parlor, a church, and a karate school. So it's a really good analogy, really, because you think really he influenced a lot of people. He opened the doorway for everybody. So I suppose I wouldn't even say it's an irritation, but I suppose one of the things that, if I look at all these people, if you say UK wise, I mean, you've got some brilliant martial arts in this country. You've got some brilliant fighters, you know, like Thai boxers and all disciplines. Great, you know, we've got some really, really top fighters in this country. And I suppose in a lot of ways, and it's not an irritation, but a lot of them don't realise that it's Bruce Lee's the reason they're doing what they've done, because what they're doing, I mean, because he was the catalyst for their instructor, or if anything, he was the one that opened the door to the interest in martial arts that allowed that particular doctrine of martial art to be taught in this country. So if you look at, say, Thai boxing, for example, like back in the day, most Thai boxers in the UK were based in the Midlands or North, because that's where, when the first Thai people came here, like Thai instructors, they couldn't afford to live in London. It was too expensive. So they go to up north, more up north really, maybe Midlands, more up north, because it was cheaper accommodation. So then you had Master Toddy, you had Sken, all these sort of people that Woody and them sort of people that come to the UK back in the early days, and obviously the breed of Thai boxers in this country that got really to top level were mainly from the northern part of the country, and that's the reason why.
Which again, I'd never thought about that particularly.
But those people that came here and started, the Thais that came here and started those Thai boxing clubs, I'm not saying they wouldn't have done that anyway, and they could have took off, but there had to be some sort of an interest in the UK for martial arts. So if you're a fan of martial arts, and all of a sudden the local church hall opens up, I've got this new Malaysian martial art, or this new Filipino, or
whatever,
Thai,
literally whatever, yeah.
You know, and so once again, it all stems back from the days when, I mean, I started karate in 1973. Yeah, I was 10 years old, October 1973. It was just before my birthday, so that's when I started karate. And there was no kung fu clubs around. It was just karate or judo or boxing. That's all you really had, really. You know, that I knew of. You know, certainly there was no kung fu clubs around. So if you look back at the history of it, people started off grabbing whatever was there. You know, if something else had come up, I started karate, but if there had been a kung fu club, I probably would have done kung fu, or you know, it's what was available at the time.
It's quite a nice reminder, and I think it's quite appropriate at this particular time as well, that all the BS between the different styles and the different organisations and this and that and the other, actually it means absolutely nothing. I think what I've seen as well, it's been great through the group. There has been more of a cohesiveness between styles. There's a bit of respect. You know, historically, it wouldn't be unusual for somebody who taught Thai boxing to take the mickey out of somebody who did even kickboxing, or it wouldn't be unusual for somebody who did, you know, a very traditional style of kung fu to not appreciate judo, or the very traditional people to think that MMA is just animals and it's not really martial arts. There's a lot of that. I think what's been interesting about this period of time, that a lot of instructors they've become martial artists. We all feel the same vulnerability. We all have been affected by this current lockdown in the same way. It's actually irrelevant what style you do right now. You're a martial arts instructor. You've got the same needs as everybody else. You've got those same vulnerabilities as everybody else. And what's really quite nice is coming through is some mutual respect. And you are somebody that I think I particularly wanted to demonstrate that on, because on the surface there may be people who think, oh, he just runs a, you know, blood and snot gym down the road, and that's not the case. And actually,
I think if there's any criticism with a lot of sort of martial art instructors in this country, if you like, I see a lot of it, and you see them commenting, some people, and they're, oh, I've been training since the early 1990s, and you think, really? Oh, ain't that long ago. All I will say to these people is, you know, and all respect to them, and all lovely people, are probably brilliant martial artists, and probably knock my teeth out. So I'm not, you know, but at the end of the day is, study your history. Study where martial arts started. Study, you know, what came before you, what influenced your instructor, and what influenced his instructor. Look back a little bit. You know, understand your roots. Understand your roots, and then fast forward to what you're doing. Does it make sense what you're doing? Have you evolved, or are you still stagnant? I mean, if you've got the karate style, I was saying earlier about the ones on the boat with the long stances. So if you went back 500 years ago and you had a little Japanese or Chinese or Asian person or whoever that was, say, 4'6" and 4 foot wide, you know, and he developed a style that he wanted to defend himself, you know, and a lot of people at that time, maybe this, you know, the same sort of build as him. How can that same style suit someone who's 6'5"?
And this is the question. It's not actually about how we depict our styles by name. The question actually is, does it work? Does it work? Does it work for you?
Yeah, but like I said, everything works, and if it doesn't work, it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that Bruce Lee or Daniel Santos said. I think, you know, you don't take a long staff into a telephone box to have a fight with it.
And I'm really glad.
What's a telephone box?
But even I'm going to take that and possibly steal it from you as well. What I love about those two sentences put together, everything works but everything doesn't because it's situational. It actually apply, like right now, even with business, we've you know, we've had this panic. Some people, it wasn't right to stream classes. Some people it was. Some people are now advertising for stream membership. Some people are not. And what's interesting is what you've said is exactly right. What works for one doesn't work for another. It depends on who you are, where you are, what your circumstances are, you know, what part of the country, what style you teach, what your comfort zone is, whether you rely on the money, do you have to do everything, you know, it really is. So, I'm going to steal that one. Everything works and everything doesn't.
But I ain't mine. That's something to say. I'll probably remember for someone else.
I'm gonna credit you. I'm gonna credit you at this point. So is there anything else that you, so actually before we go on, if anybody was interested in having a look at, I know you've just done like a retro style, everybody was Kung Fu fighter. I know that was you from your era being nostalgic, but I think there's a lot of people like that. Where can people find that?
Amazon.
On Amazon. So what's the book? What, it's a magazine, right?
It's a book. Well, it's like a softback book.
And it's called Everybody Was Kung Fu Fighting. Yeah,
it's about 105 pages, I think it is, off the top of my head. It sounds a lot. It's not a massive book. It just basically goes over the history. It's more UK based, so It's not written in like from sort of like me saying, I remember this and I remember that type of book. It just tells a history. Like it's got bits in it where it goes back to about 1968, where you got what I did is in my research. I went back in all the British newspaper archives and searched anything sort of martial art type related back to the 60s, you know, because I thought there's connection somewhere, you know. I mean, if you look at, just on this kind of on a tangent slightly, if you look at the UK as far as karate goes, you know, some of the early pioneers of karate in the UK, like Tatsuo Suzuki, Wadaru, you know, Enoida, Shoto Khan and stuff, you know, these people arrived in the 60s, and you know, why did people train back in them days? There was no Bruce Lee film or Kung Fu films around, but you had James Bond. James Bond was like the karate, you know, look at these, and what was the spin-off of James Bond? You know, all these spy TV shows, whether it was The Saint, whether it was all like a James Bond type of a figure, wasn't it? And they all done karate or something, didn't they? They all did this martial art, you know. So my ex-father-in-law, he started karate with Peter Spenton.
Okay.
And Peter Spenton is one of the pioneers of British karate, isn't he? Peter Spenton, you know. I mean, I went to his club a couple of times when I was a kid, and he was really tough, you know, and scary. And yeah, he was one of the. But I didn't know this at the time, obviously. But sort of years later, I talked to my father-in-law, and he said, "So yeah," he said, "I started." He said, "I didn't keep up to it because I had a family, like, you know." He said, "But he used to work for Cheriton's Brewery." He said, "Me and me mate Peter," he said, "we started karate with a Japanese fella called Suzuki over in West London or something. We better get a bus over there." I said, "Oh yeah, it was your mate to be a Peter Spenton." I went, "Peter Spenton? Really?" Like, and then it turns out it was the same one. So it was a bit of a coincidence. So if you look back, that's like part of the history again, isn't it? You know,
it is.
Right. You know,
and
so
I think the word I want to use is nostalgia. I think it's
I didn't cover that in the book, that bit. But what the point I'm trying to make is I went back in the old newspapers and I looked at anything that could be related. I thought I don't go too much off on the tangent, because I think that may go off the subject matter a bit too much because it's more about the kung fu boom. So, and I found some articles by there was a reporter called Donald Zeck, and he was quite a famous reporter at the time. He'd interviewed the Beatles, Marilyn Monroe, Frank Sinatra. He was a big newspaper reporter, and he actually went to Hong Kong in '68, I think it was, and he went to the Shaw Brothers studio and then ended up being on one of the films as an extra in the background. And he wrote this sort of spoofy type of a report on it. It was quite sort of half taking the piss out of it, but okie chocky, chop socky type, you know, the yellow peril sort of like very sort of now I suppose his class is sort of racist type of, sort of Alf Garnett sort of sort of language. But
yeah, it was a different era, right? It was a different era.
Listen, I think, and I don't, not in a racist way, of course I don't, but I find it quite fun, and I don't think they should. I think that's great because that's part of what it was like then. You know, people were a bit more naive to people of the world. People didn't realise, you know, it was the world was what it was. We didn't. How far did you go when you was a kid? Cornwall, you know, you didn't really go. You know, so you know, let's just see Alan Wicker on a television, going to some exotic place, and that's part of the book as well. There was an Alan Wicker show called Wicker's Orient, and it's actually out on DVD. I've got the. Actually, I'll send you a copy of it. Okay. I'll send you a wee transfer.
Yeah.
Download it, yeah, and have a look at it. But he goes to Hong Kong and he goes to the Shaw Brothers studio and he interviews people. And he actually interviews Betty Ting Pei. Betty Ting Pei is the girl that Bruce Lee died in her room. Yeah. And I actually went to Hong Kong back in the 2006, I think it was 2005, 2006. Me and my wife, and she was pregnant. We went to Hong Kong. I interviewed Betty Ting Pei for a Bruce Lee book I was doing. So it was,
wow,
that's another thing. But so she's in this thing as well. But obviously back in this was filmed in 1971. So and Bruce Lee was in Hong Kong, but no one knew who he was then. Like Alan Wicker wouldn't have done. Otherwise he could have gone and interviewed Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
So he's out there interviewing the wrong people, really. But there you go. So the book covers that as well. It covers. I found some old TV times. I'm a collector of all old stuff. I'm a bit of a weirdo, really. I like all the old documentaries and stuff. I've got CDs full of like these here. I've got these CDs full of TV times. I think you can't see it, can you? I can see on there. They're all like old TV times. If you go back to the 50s, you know, I'm going through all those as well. I found the Alan Wicker one. I found some sort of martial art related stuff back on the TV. So I'll cover some of that sort of that stuff. So all the prequels type stuff. I've sort of laid the foundations in the book with that. Then it goes on to the Kung Fu boom when King Boxer came out. And obviously the Bruce Lee. I mean, Bruce Lee's film, Fist of Fury, a lot of people don't realise that it was the second film he made in Hong Kong. It was the first film to be shown in the UK. And it was actually shown at the Rialto in London on July the 19th. And that was the night before Bruce Lee died. So when you think about it, really, that's sort of like a bit of a sort of a ironic to really think that people sitting in that audience on that night of July the 19th watching this fascinating film they've never seen like before in their life. You know, hours later, that man they're watching is dead.
Mad, isn't it?
So no one even knew him then, you know. So he just about broke through hours before he died, really. So I'll cover the Bruce Lee bit, obviously, but it's more about the whole scene and how once Bruce Lee came on board, like everyone wanted to be Bruce Lee. Everyone, you know, the censorship went mad on the films. They cut the nunchuckers out of the films because, and I've covered some of this as well in a book where some old newspaper articles where it says a youth in Birmingham has been arrested in the street for swinging a pair of kung fu sticks around, you know, and the police have arrested him. And so loads of these bad press was going about, and then you had the British Board of Film Censorship. They decided to, we better cut these bits out of the film. It's, you know, kids are kicking each other in the playground instead of playing hopscotch now, you know, and stuff, you know. So it's quite interesting. Like now it's a bit, really, but I remember a lot of that when I was a kid, you know.
Yeah, me too.
And then that was like it's hard to explain unless someone was really, unless they came through the martial art boom in them days. It's really hard to sort of to put across how fascinating it was and how exciting it was. Now I'd find like a Bruce Lee book, you know, come up like, you know, I'd travel to Chinatown or something to get there. I'd travel over London, we'd get on buses, me and my cousin, my friends, and we'd drive around literally all in the school holidays. We'd spend their life on the buses around London looking for magazines on martial arts. So I've still got stacks of black belts and karate illustrators and official karates, and then like looking at them through and idolising people like Benakides and Bill Wallace, and well, luckily I got to meet years later, like, you know, and it's like, you know, I'm speaking to him, standing talking to Benakides in the street, and bumped into him in London years ago, you know, I was talking to Ray, such a lovely, and then like there was like your idols as a kid. And going back to my karate days, back in, I'll tell you briefly, we had towards the end of the 70s, about I think it was 79. Dan Inosanto came to the UK, and through a friend of mine, he put a course on, like a seminar on in the hotel in London. What the name of the hotel? It was the first time he'd been over here, to my knowledge, and I'd done the course. I went there on the seminar, and it was all night long, you know, of London. It was like, opened my eyes, and he was like the man that I'd seen in all these magazines standing with Bruce Lee. Now I'm seeing,
yeah, there he was, yeah.
And I'm seeing, do you know what really hit me though was because I remember looking at him at that time and thinking how good he looked in real life. Like, and by this time I'd got my black belt, so I had half a clue, you know what I mean, what I was looking at. And I'm looking at him, and I think this fella's, he's the real deal. He's a real deal. Now, then I've seen him on film with Bruce Lee, and how much better Bruce Lee looked. And I thought, well, freaking, if that's how good he is in real life, you can imagine Bruce Lee how good he was, you know. And then Dan Inosanto actually said that night, so like on a scale of 1 to 10, if you said I was 2 or 3, Bruce was like 10.
Wow.
So I knew then 100 million% that Bruce Lee was the real deal. And it doesn't mean he can go and beat Mike Tyson or go and beat Muhammad Ali. That's just stupid talk. You know, I'm talking about as a martial artist, as a person, as an individual, he was a real deal. And to this day, he's brought it full circle, I think. And so another thing that probably would, once again, it doesn't irritate me, but I'd like the younger generation to realise that what started it all off. So when they go, oh, Bruce Lee was just a film. No, sorry, you're wrong. You know, you've got to study your history.
I think the it's going to be something extraordinary for because martial arts already exists, right? So it wasn't new and exciting, and so I think generations moving forward won't ever have such a revolutionary experience, such an exciting experience,
No, not at all.
because it happened, and the whole point of it being revolutionary is it happens once, right? So
yeah, a lot of the thing as well is back in them days, when you see which now seems ridiculous, when you see a photograph or a kung fu film where someone's jumping over a rooftop, we didn't know if that was real. You know, he was a young kid. It was the equivalent of probably someone watching Spider-Man or Superman back in the 60s, isn't it?
Yeah.
Superhero, you know.
Yeah.
But for all we knew, you can learn this exotic type of a fight in a combat sport or art, shall I say, and you'd be able to jump. I remember starting karate, and I remember thinking, so I want to learn a bit of jump 10 foot in the air. That was in my head as a kid. I really believed it as a kid. I thought, the more I practiced, the more and I got quite good at me flying kicks at one point. So I was jumping every day after school. I'd be out the garden, running down the pathway, jumping up, kicking the branch of the tree, you know, and falling on my arse most of the time. I did it over and over. And me and my friends who was into karate, we used to go and, back in them days, before the days of obviously phones and stuff, we had to buy a film. You know, you get a camera, you put the film in, And we'd do that regularly. We'd save out a pocket money, we'd buy a film, or even a Super 8 film, and we'd make little fight scenes up. And we rehearse them. But it was all it was all training, really.
Yeah.
We go, right, I want to do some flying kicks. So, he'd take 24 films of us doing a flying kick. Now he'd put his film in, and he'd do his ones. Then we'd send it off to the chemist, and it'd take 2 weeks to come back. And out of 24 films, you might have one photo that just caught it right, All the others just like this, look like he'd been thrown by an elephant or something, you know what I mean? So it's like...
I think what's making me feel quite nice right now about this conversation is that maybe we're currently collecting footage actually to do a martial arts advert, and you and I spoke a couple of weeks ago, and I know we didn't talk about this, but you were talking about Bruce Lee and history and stuff, and it kind of sat in my back pocket, and the whole thing was, do you know what, we've got too academic about everything. We put out boring adverts for our martial arts classes. We don't showcase the spectacular stuff. We're all very beginners class, build confidence. It's quite boring, and I would like very much moving forward to change the way we start showcasing our industry. I would like some cohesion. I'd like, us to become as one as an industry. That, I mean, I know that's never going to happen entirely, but as a theory, can we just represent our industry? Martial arts is a fantastic thing, and maybe what we've done is we've forgotten why martial arts became so exciting. You've used those as exciting and cool, and and we've maybe forgotten those roots a little bit, and we've become a little bit academic about it.
What people tend to do though is, and this is a Bruce Lee thing as well, and he obviously got it from someone, and probably the likes of Krishnamurti and them sort of philosophers. Mouth's not working, but people keep adding things, don't they, over time. They add things and add things and add things. What Bruce Lee said was, you've got to take things away till you get to the bare essentials. So it's like if you get someone like a sculptor, he doesn't add things to the sculpture. He hacks away the unessentials till he comes to the essential bits to make that statue. Right. So if you've got a big
I really like that.
This isn't me talking. I'm just talking about what Bruce Lee was like. If you had a big rock, you chisel away until you've got that shape of the Venus de Milo, whatever it was. You've got that. You're hacking away till you've got that shape of a face. You don't add on and stick a bit. Was that glue? I'll stick a bit of rock, make the nose, and I'll make the ears. Do they? They hack away too. So a lot of martial arts, I think they do wrong, in my opinion, is they try and add things all the time rather than cut away. You've got to simplify things. So I think if I can give any advice, and I hate saying it because I'm not.
No, I know.
I'm not on a pedestal. I'm not nothing special. I'm always learning. But if there's anything I can say to anyone that's listening that probably thinks I'm a tosser anyway, but if they don't, right, look at what you're doing, and then look at what you're doing and say, right, what can I throw away that I don't really need? Do we really need to do that? Whether it's a technique, whether it's a part of their syllabus, or whether it's a rule in the club, do we really need that? Take away the shit, throw the crap away, just end up with the bare essentials that you need. And that's like really the lockdowns taught us, really, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
We was all panicking and going, really? We're locked down, big deal. All right, listen to that. I think someone said about, it's all right with one on your, I can't remember, wasn't it? Someone said on one of your threads that, it's all right for these instructors to say that because they're getting grants from the government and blah, blah, blah. Listen, if you're getting grants from the government, good luck to you. You're entitled to it. It's as simple as that. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not pouncing off society. You're being helped. You're in a country where you pay your taxes, presumably. This is what it's for in times of need. So there's nothing wrong with that at all. But putting that aside, you've still got to look at what you're doing and saying, well, do I really need to do that? And to be honest with you, Don, if the Boris Johnson comes on the television next week and says, right, next month, what was today, 7th of May. So he says, right, by June, all the gyms can open. I'm not going to open yet. I don't care. If I lose another 100 men, I don't care. Because without sounding corny, you've got to put safety before everything else. Do you really think that, I'd give it a bit longer, you know, take your time.
And not
Time.
everybody agrees with that, but that
Sure.
again is the point. It's about what works for you in your situation, what feels right in your belly, what do you need to do, what do you need to do. Don't just do what everybody else is doing. Think about what fits for you.
It doesn't work. If you find in 6 months' time it's all gone to pot and we can't, the gyms are gone, and you've got to get a job as a milkman, you've got to get a job as a milkman.
Yeah, done.
What are you going to do about it? You know, it's gone. It's not good moaning about it. You know, listen, and not being funny, if your foundations and your ethics are strong enough anyway, you can rebuild. Sounds like Steve Austin. You can rebuild you. That is true, isn't it?
Yeah. People forget. I think
I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to have to rebuild that gym again.
Yeah.
I'm losing members on a daily basis. Doesn't matter how many. I'm doing the 6, and this is thanks to you. You helped me with this. But I'm doing 6 classes a week. I'm now introducing another 2 next week during the daytime. One of our instructors is going to do in the mornings. And we've got young Lily, who's up and coming fighter. Lily Copperthwaite she's really doing well. She's won quite a few titles already. She's 100,000,000% dedicated. You know, like it's one of them. What's up? 1,000,000 sounds corny, but one of the 1,000 kids that really. I was like that as a kid. It's not trying to be big-headed. I was fanatical. I was so obsessed. You know, I'd get up from school. First thing I would do would put my karate bottoms on and practice and do my stretching and kicking every single bloody day.
Yeah. My husband did the same. In fact, he still does the same now. He's the same. But
he's from the same era.
Yeah.
But it's going back. I know this conversation like it's gone around in circles, but it's the way it is, you know. So I just think that you've got to look at it. If people put the effort in, do the online classes, give it a go. Don't just, you know, poo-hoo it and say, oh, I can't do that. Give it a go. So we've got 8 classes now. By next week, we'll have 8 classes a week. And even so, I know that every week I'm going to be losing people. I will retain people. I know I will. And the other difficult thing, I think, and you helped me with this as well. I've had a few people say to me, well, you should suspend your memberships. And hang on a minute. I did think that. But what you said's right. I'm still teaching. I'm still making myself available every single day. So that person who's a member, you know, who I totally appreciate their membership and their everything else, they have got the opportunity to train still. Yeah. If they don't want to train, they're free to cancel. Yeah. You know, but if I was to sit on my arse and doing nothing with no classes, then yeah, why am I taking any money? But I'm still providing a service, the best that I can in this situation. There's nothing else I can. I've done pre-recorded videos. I'm still doing them, you know, which means for me, and you know, I'm not being funny. I'm filming it. I'm getting something to film with my boy. Okay, make over the field here or something, by the back garden. Then I'm coming back. Then I'm uploading it. Then I'm editing it. I'm putting music to it, royalty free, right? And so I'm putting some effort into it. So I'm trying to say it's not me, but if I can do it, listen, people are a lot better than me, If I can do it, anyone can do it. So if anyone's listening to this and they're feeling sorry for themselves, get off your arse and do something about it. Get off your arse and do something about it, all right? And if it doesn't work after that, at least you can turn around and go, well, at least I tried, you know, as you're delivering the milk, you know? You know what I'm saying? So
I do know what you're saying, and I like that you've spoken from the heart about that, Steve, as we can always rely on. So it's been great talking to you. I think in a few months it would be quite nice to do it again, because there's so much that you've got, you know, your stories and stuff. So
honestly, I'm not. I'm just one of thousands of people who do what I do. I'm nothing. I appreciate what you're saying. I just love doing what I do, and that's it. I think that's the bottom line. The lot is, I love doing what I do, and because I've got the passion, you know. I got the passion. Right,
it's been lovely speaking to you, Steve. I will put this up on YouTube, let you know when it's done. And
So
thank
I guarantee
you
you get more dislikes than likes. So there you go. Hopefully.
Have a great day, Steve.